To me, dear, a wood is a foreshadowing of the fact of paradise. The trees, the flowers, the birds, and animals, they all seem at their happiest in a wood, as though they were redeemed already. Then, in a wood, they have so much to say. A bird singing to you in a wood, a deer turning his head to look at you and then disappearing through the trees. They lure you on and on. You want to go always a little further, to something, some clearing in the wood. It's a queer thing, but when I think of the men and women of genius, artists, and saints, I seem to see their figures moving always against the background of a wood. If you are looking for a fall read that will inspire your homemaking, speak to you spiritually, speak to you in a cozy and warm and inviting and safe place that just really centers around what it means to have a good home, to create a good home, and what that can do for you spiritually speaking, then I cannot recommend Pilgrim's Inn by Elizabeth Goudge enough. Hello friends, and welcome to my channel. My name is Haley and I am a Christian wife, Charlotte Mason homeschooling mother of 3, out to redeem my very own literary education. So I am really going back in time in my reading, trying to find older or classic authors and literature that I've never encountered before, and I have finally picked up Elizabeth Goudge. I have encountered the mention of Elizabeth Goudge amongst Sally Clarkson and Sarah Clarkson's books. This was mentioned as one of Sally's favorite books, if not her favorite, in her book, The Life-Giving Home. And then Sarah Clarkson mentioned it in her book, Book Girl. So when I found this at my local vendor mall for $3, I snatched it up as quick as I could. It is a gorgeous vintage looking edition with my favorite color of green on it, and I just love it. And after reading it, it is genuinely one of my favorite books of all time. And I can't tell y'all maybe how many times I've probably said that within the past year or two encountering classic literature. But as a homemaker, as someone whose entire life is centered around the home and mothering children and caring for my husband and my family, this book just spoke to me. Because not only is it a really cozy and warm book, but it's very poetic and very spiritually reverent. So it just checks all of those different boxes for me. But in Pilgrim's Inn, you actually follow an entire family as the cast of characters, and really more specifically 3 families that are kind of broken up. So the actual inn, the Pilgrim's Inn, is an old bed and breakfast that is being sold. And a husband is looking for it whose family is a little bit on the rocks and need of an escape. This is post-World War II, so the world is really mending itself and patching itself. He, fighting in the war, has dealt with a lot. He and his wife had a really turbulent point in their marriage, and so his mother, who lives down the road in her own estate that she has just really created, is pushing him to purchase this old inn because she believes it is going to be the best thing possible for him and his family and his wife. And despite consulting his wife or her wishes, he buys the place because the second he and the kids see it, they fall in love. It is old and it is beautiful and it has this architecture that's just so well preserved. And they all mention upon coming to this house that it looks like it's trying to draw them in and welcome them in. And they just have this immediate connection with the place. It's located down by the water. It's by this wood that they call night wood that is really precious to all of the children and a few of the adults. And it's just the perfect place. And it used to be owned by monks to welcome in pilgrims as a place of refuge and rest before they move on in their journey. So they purchase this home and start to just make it their own. And Nadine, who is the mother figure, who in a lot of ways I could relate to because she's not naturally maternal. She loves her children, but they kind of exhaust her, honestly, a little bit, which is maybe a hard truth we face sometimes as mothers, but it was really good to see that type of character in a book. but she is incredibly beautiful and loves things that are beautiful. So this home even speaks to her. But she needs help with these 5 children that she has and one set of twins that exhaust her. So she hires on a nanny whose aunt was actually the previous owner to help her. And this nanny is sure and strong and put together. She is a widow from the war. She has no children of her own. And I loved reading her character's point of view because the way that she handles the children is very authoritative and yet loving and respectful. That's a really hard balance to find. So to see these 2 different mothering types kind of work side by side to raise these children was just what they needed. And the grandmother, whose name is Lucilla, has all this maternal love. She is kind of the matriarch, the ringleader of her family. She is also now a widow who has a story of her own of having a hard time with her marriage. So she is encouraging her daughter-in-law to kind of take up the reins and ownership. But they're not the only people that we find in this book. In fact, when you pick this book up at first, you're following Sally Adair, who is just this young shepherdess who life is just good. She's not a beautiful person to say, but she's a beautiful soul, and that's easily recognized in a lot of people at first. And her father is a famous artist. They come upon the inn as a place to stay for her father to find rest and inspiration. He has an immediate connection with Nadine and her beauty. He wants to paint her. He just sees something in her that's on the brink of change. And he also connects with one of her sons who is an artist. Sally is actually kind of a woman that most women want to keep at arm's length because her goodness and kind of the fact that she's never been through anything hard is a bit repulsive to them and hard to understand. So she's trying to find herself when she meets David Elliot, who is the brother of George, who is the father I was talking about at the beginning of this story. It's kind of a lot of parts and pieces, but he is the brother of George, the head of the Elliot family who just purchased this old inn. He comes along. Turns out him and Nadine had a bit of a past, which the grandmother is trying to help them reconcile so that she can patch her marriage with her husband, let go of this love of her other son, whom she loves. And then David and Sally kind of also are on a journey on their own, potentially towards love for each other and themselves, which is a lot. There's a huge cast of characters. There's even another set that kind of comes in with a crazy backstory that I just don't want to let in too much on because it's kind of a mystery and everyone is pulling these truths out of each other. They're all within this home under this roof. This home is providing something special for all of them that is restorative, that helps change them and grow them and flourish them. And I just loved it. It was so cozy and comforting and beautiful. And that really starts to pour out in my own home life after reading a story like this. But what I really loved is that it was spiritually reverent. So when they are in this home that used to be a monastery, they discover this painting of this old knight on a white horse following after this great white stag in a wood that reminds them a lot of Nightwood, their neighboring woods next to this inn. And it's just beautiful and lovely and artistically awakens some very soul-changing things. I just loved it. As a homeschool mom who follows Charlotte Mason, which is also a little bit of classical ideas, that entire thing just completely spoke to me. And then at the very end, this is a great book to read in the fall because the last chapter ends in a Christmas chapter. The family kind of comes together to host this really beautiful Christmas party of plays and poetry and just loveliness and hosting with warm and welcome, and all of these guests are just saying, wow, we've never been to a party like this and we'll never be to a party like this ever again, because there was just something so welcoming about this home and this atmosphere. I loved this book. It dealt with some really hard topics and hard truths, a lot of different characters who are in very different points in their life, all coming together under a safe, warm, loving atmosphere, and it changed them all. That is just what we're trying to do as homemakers. So if you're looking for a book to read this fall, I cannot recommend this book enough. I did find out after the fact that this is actually the second book in the Elliott family trilogy. I didn't know that going into it, and I was never confused like I missed something. So the first book is actually from the grandmother Lucilla's perspective, and it goes a little bit into Nadine and David's story as well. But this book brings that up so much in the beginning to introduce it that you didn't have to read that book before going into this one. So I found that that did not mess me up at all. And now I want to go back and read the first book because I want to read about Lucilla's story, the grandmother. So just know that going in, this is the second book in a trilogy, but it really works as a standalone. So if this just sounds great and you want to dive right in, I did that. And when I looked up Elizabeth Goudge, that's when I realized there were 2 other books in this series. But you didn't need to know that before going into this because it does such a great job of providing all of that background information. But this was my first Elizabeth Goudge book, and I am sold on her writing. It is cozy, it's comforting, it's reverent, it's poetic. This is just everything that I yearn and long for. So if you have read any other of Elizabeth Goudge's work, please let me know in the comments below which of her books you think I should try next, or if you have recommendations of books that are like this, because I loved it. I don't know yet if it's my favorite book of all time, but it's probably my top 5. And I would reread this again. That is a highlight of a great book for me, is if I would reread it, and I would. And I really hope that you decide to give it a try this fall. So that is all I have for this video. Lord willing, I will see y'all next time. Happy reading, friends.